I came to know that we had about the zero rated website and the school's efforts to do that when we came back from the initial lockdown. And I just thought, we had a range of students who couldn't afford data, and so they were at a huge disadvantage. I had students that were really just falling off the map, and my hands were tied in terms of what I could do to help them. And so I went to the school asking if we had any plan to zero rate or to help these kids, and that's when I found out we had actually applied to the government to have a website that we had set up to be zero rated, and that we had been promised that would happen in a month or two. And by the time that I saw it for the first time, we had already been waiting for about 4 or 5 months, and no one had zero rated us. I think at the time we'd only been zero rated by RAIN, which is the sort of new cellular network in the game, but hardly any of our students had RAIN SIM cards at that point. So really the ones that we needed to zero rate the website were Cell C, Vodacom and MTN, and none of them had zero rated us. And I just thought that surely needed to be the priority. From the moment we went into lockdown, we needed to zero rate these websites and these resources, because there's such a gulf between the privileged schools and the disadvantaged schools. And while we can't, every day send teachers and physical resources to these schools, we can send a link, and we can send all of our resources are online these days. We only print those that we really need to. So how easy would it be to send a link to a school, no matter where it was in the country, and say, here's our resources for free, zero rated, doesn't matter if your students have data or not, they just have to have enough to open up the website, and then they have everything that we have to offer. And then any kid in South Africa could access some of the best resources that this country has in terms of education. But it just was so slow, and I tried to contact the cellular networks directly, and we just weren't getting anywhere. And then eventually I wrote the article for the Mail and Guardian, and they generously published it on their website, just trying to get some attention to it and trying to get these networks on board. Because at that point, the response from the networks to me was that they were trying to prioritize universities and colleges, which that makes sense. But if you go to university or college, you are already, by the mere fact that you're there, privileged. No matter the background you come from, you're already an elite few. And the schooling system was at a far more pressing point, because our matrics needed to get through in order so that they could apply to the varsities. And so I just was trying to challenge them to rethink the approach they had taken. And I don't know how much of an impact that article made, but we are now zero rated by those cellular networks, and we are now currently populating that website with all our resources. We just had a meeting this morning about it, and hopefully in the next few weeks we're fully populated, and we'll be able to send it to any school that wants it in the country and say, here's the link, use anything you want. And now in lockdown I created video lessons for every chapter of the Matric Setwork novel for English, Life of Pi. Now I can send a link to anyone in the country that will take them to those videos. And now a kid, no matter what school they go to, I can teach them about Life of Pi in preparation for their matric exam. It doesn't matter what school they go to, where they are, what their data situation is, they can now access it. And that seems to be the easiest and most immediate thing we can do to start bridging the gap between the gulf of quality of schooling that we have in South Africa. So it kind of just came about that it happened that way, but hopefully it made some difference. From the moment I started teaching, you have this voice in the back of your head of should I not be at a more underprivileged school? Should I not be helping those kids that are more disadvantaged? Because at a school like that I teach at, I love teaching the kids here, and I do think I play a positive role, but these kids are going to make it, by the mere fact that they're at the school, they've got such an advantage already in life, and should I not be trying to use my skills to help others? But there's so many other complications with that, and I've got to safeguard my own sort of career, I guess, and it's not as easy as I thought that would be to sort of sacrifice that, because there are limitations to what I can do if I teach at a school that's not as well funded as Westerford. But now I can make that difference I can stay at a school like Westerford. I can make use of the resources I have available and the support and the structures and the systems, and still help my students in my classroom. But any student in the country who wants it or who needs it, I can assist them as well, just by sending a link and go, here's all my resources, here's my lessons on this, here's my notes on essay writing, here's my punctuation notes, and that can just make it's exciting. And it's exciting hearing in the staff meeting this morning that we're all populating it, every subject, every teacher, with all the resources we have, and what a positive step that could be in helping some of the disadvantaged in our country. I had this draw to teaching when I was at school, but I was put off by it because you hear all these things about the salary and the hours, and sort of you go, I'd rather live a more comfortable life. And then I came to university and I was studying a completely different degree at UCT, and I needed some extra money, so I just applied to different schools in the area wanting to coach, and I got a coaching job here, and I must have been 3 weeks into that, and I just went, nothing makes me... I had never been in a space that made me happier than that. And yes, it's on the field, and so that is a different dynamic to being in the classroom, but it wasn't the coaching that filled me so much. It was the interacting with young people. It was playing that positive role model role with them. It was just, even though it was a sport, just taking stuff that I've learned from my experiences, what people have taught me, and being able to share that with others, and seeing that have a positive impact on them. Just, I'd wake up every morning and I'd sort of go to my lectures, and the whole time I was just waiting to get back to school so I could continue coaching. So that was a really important moment that drew me into it, where it just became, the calling became so loud I couldn't ignore it anymore, as I'd been doing up until that point. So it really was a calling, and still, I haven't been teaching long, but 4 years later, having switched my degree to a teaching degree, it still fills me as much, if not more, I guess. My best advice is that there are bad days in teaching. There are bad lessons. There are difficult lessons. There are difficult students. And those days can add up sometimes, and sometimes it can feel like you're having more bad lessons or bad days than good, and that can be quite draining, and those moments take a lot from you because you put so much time and effort into preparing your lesson, and then you get to the lesson and it doesn't work the way you thought it would, or this kid was disrespectful or rude, or it's just not working, and that can really drain you. But for me, it can be a brief moment, but a moment that works. I think about last year, I was teaching parts of speech, and afterwards a student who had never spoken in my class came up to me, and his eyes were just lit up, and he said, "Sir, I understand this now." And you could see this kid had been trying to get it for 3 years, and suddenly it clicked, and seeing the joy in his face. Or, when I have a lesson, it goes exactly how I planned, and a kid can just make a little remark about how much they're enjoying the lesson or how the lesson's working. And that moment for me can fill me up again. And it can make up for one good moment, can make up for 10 bad ones. But that isn't the case for everyone. And I've seen that for some people, those moments aren't enough. And so I think when you're considering to be a teacher or you're a young teacher, you need to assess if that is the case for you. Do those moments fill you enough to make up for the bad days or the bad lessons or the bad moments? Because if it doesn't, no one wants to be in a job that takes away from them more than it gives. And sometimes there's more that takes away, but as long as the moments that do give you something give you a lot, then you'll be fine. Then you can do this job, I think, forever. But those moments have to matter to you. It can't be like, okay, cool, I helped that kid with parts of speech. It's got to be like, wow, I really helped that kid understand what a noun is. And that might seem simple and small, but if that moment fills you, then you're fine. I find being honest with them helps. And just being open in your communication. Saying to them, like, look guys, this is something that I struggle with at school. Or if you want to be really honest, you can sometimes say, guys, this is something I struggled with while I was studying my teaching degree. Or, I had to go to this other teacher to get them to explain it to me, but now I get it, and so I can share that with you. because then it just, I think it allows them to go like, okay, this is another human being who can now teach me how to learn this thing. If they struggle with it, then it's fine that I struggle with it, but if they learnt it as well, then I can learn it. So I think being honest and being open with them and being vulnerable to that extent can really help in the more kind of in the blander parts of the of the subject, but also it's about you've got to be passionate about, because there's parts of English that I'm not passionate about. I'm not the most passionate person about finite verbs, for example. I don't think anyone is. But so if it's great if the content fills you, but I think I could really, I'd have to study it obviously, but I would be happy teaching any subject because it's the kids that I'm passionate about rather than the subject. And if the kids pick up on that, if the kids can see that you are, ready to teach this lesson, even if the subject matter isn't that, exciting, then they will pick up on that energy from you and they will sort of catch onto it and feel it too.